Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 25th anniversary celebration of the commissioning of USS John S. McCain and the change of command ceremony, in which Commander Micah D. Murphy will be relieved by Commander Ryan T. Easterday. Guests are requested to silence cell phones for the duration of the ceremony. Will the guests please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for this parading of colors and invocation. Commander, United States Navy, arriving. John S. McCain, arriving. Parade the colors.
Forward! March! March time! March! Color guard! Halt! Present! Colors!
are the colors.
Order! Colors! Ready! 2! Mark time! March! Forward! March! Color guard! Halt!
Destroyer Squadron 15 Chaplain Stevens will deliver the invocation. Guests, please remain standing.
Come on, I invite you to join me as I pray. Heavenly Father, first I just want to say thank you for holding off the rain. Lord, I know even if there is bad weather, I thank you that there's nothing that can rob us of your presence. So Lord, I pray that everyone here, everyone listening in or watching from a distance will be able to sense your presence in a very personal way today. Lord, I think of the men for whom the ship was named and how each of them spent their lives literally right up to their dying days in service to others. And Lord, whether they knew it or not, they were following the example you yourself left for us when you said that the Son of Man did not come to be served, but rather to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many. And when you said that the greatest among you must be a servant. And Lord, this legacy of serving has been left not only by the namesakes of this ship, but also by the crews who have given of their lives serving aboard her, some even to their dying day. So Lord, I pray that this ship will continue for years to come to stand strong. And I pray that it will forever inspire us to our highest calling, to serve. Amen.
Guests, please be seated. Today is the 25th anniversary celebration of the commissioning of the USS John S. McCain. We celebrate 25 years of service for this Arleigh Burke-class destroyer and the American heroes for whom it is named. During the ceremony, you will hear the words of several of her previous commanding officers and the ship's sponsor, as we remember these past 25 years, and just as importantly, look to the future and the role John S. McCain will play in it. Ladies and gentlemen, the 17th commanding officer of USS John S. McCain, Commander Micah D. Murphy.
Good morning. Ohio gozaimasu. So Chaplain Stevens, I think your prayer is really what our speech and what we're here today is all about. I think you hit the nail on the head, and I also want to thank the Lord and that the fact that I think the luck of the Irish overcame Murphy's Law this morning with the weather. So glad they don't have to see a lot of ponchos out there. So again, on the behalf of current and past members of the USS John S. McCain, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. We were very fortunate to have some giants of Big Bad John history among us today. We're going to hear from some of them, including the commissioning captain, as well as, but I'd first like to start off by recognizing and thanking the ship's sponsor, Mrs. Cindy Hensley McCain, and the members of her family that traveled here today, Jack, Renee, Jimmy, and also making the trip are longtime staff members and friends, Mr. Joe Donahue, Virginia Pounds, Dr. Miller, Austin Kennedy, Megan Lakovich. Thank you all for coming here today. I also like to recognize the many leaders of the Yokosuka waterfront. Thank you for taking the time to join us here today out of your busy schedules. We've been planning this event for several months now, and I'm grateful for the assistance of the Navy History and Heritage Command, Vice Admiral Daly, and the U.S. Naval Institute, former commanding officers, the McCain family, and my team, especially Lieutenant Yelverton and Lieutenant J.G. Kawada. Thank you for helping put this celebration together. Exactly 25 years ago today, this ship entered commission service. However, the legacy of John S. McCain predates this hull and the two previous versions before it, dating back to 1906 when John S. McCain Sr. received his commission from the U.S. Naval Academy, the start of a 4-generation tradition. No pressure, right, Jack? Admiral John Sidney McCain Sr., the patriarch of the McCain clan, call sign SLU, served nearly 40 years and was involved in some formidable battles, wars, including both world wars, the Battle of Okinawa, and the Guadalcanal and Marianas campaigns. He gave his all to the Navy, but lived for his family, hanging on just long enough to get home after being present for the signing of the surrender aboard the USS Missouri, not too far outside of the harbor. His son, Admiral John S. McCain Jr., a submariner, sea power advocate, an accomplished wartime commander in his own right, also served 4 decades, spanning World War II, the Korean War, and lastly as Commander-in-Chief of the Pacific Command during the Vietnam War, fighting what he believed to be the grave threat of Communist Chinese expansion of influence. He also served several tours in Washington, D.C., perhaps most notably as the Chief of Legislative Affairs, often hosting influential members of Congress, perhaps a preview of things to come for his son. This father-son combo was the first pair to achieve the 4-star rank. Last year, on July 12th, exactly 66 years from the date that Mrs. Roberta McCain smashed a champagne bottle on the bow and christened the first USS John S. McCain, Secretary Richard Spencer was on board and officially added Senator John Sidney McCain III alongside his father and grandfather as namesakes of this mighty warship. There are dozens of books that catalog the remarkable history and contributions of this prolific military family. The extended family, by the way, also has some West Point grads who retired as Army generals. Fun fact for the day. But my favorite book, and one that I encourage you all to read, is Faith of My Fathers. It's a family memoir that gives insight to both the personal and professional experiences that shaped these American heroes into the men and the leaders they would become. Filled with compelling stories about war-related experiences, including Senator McCain's captivity in Vietnam, it is also replete with anecdotes of their childhoods and influential family members and friends. Starting just after Independence Day in 2013 through Christmas of 2014, I had the honor of serving in Senator McCain's office as his legislative fellow. It was a time, like now, when there was a lot going on in the world, and he was always in the mix, right, Joe? Despite the chaotic Senate calendar and the busy travel schedule, somehow he was almost always the most energetic person in the room. However, it was in the quiet hours, the time behind closed doors, and not in front of the cameras, that I will remember the most. One of my responsibilities was to inform him when a U.S. military member was killed in either Iraq or Afghanistan, and his reaction was almost always the same. A long pause, a look down to the floor, a deep breath, and then he would ask for the contact information of his family so that he could either call or write them a letter. I could tell that their sacrifices and that of their families genuinely meant something to him, and it moved him. Little did I know that a few short years later, I would take the helm of the USS John S. McCain following its own tragedy. On August 21st, 2017, the ship was involved in a collision in Singapore Strait that claimed the lives of 10 sailors. 10 lives cut short, whose ultimate sacrifices will not be in vain. This ship won't be sidelined for much longer, and it is bound for an epic comeback in 2019. Over the last 2 years, the Navy has invested a lot into increasing the material condition and the lethality of this warship, and most importantly, assembling a team ready to put this ship through its paces. I am so proud of all the hard work by the crew and the waterfront partners here today to make the ship look and perform almost as good as it did in Bath 25 years ago. Before we look ahead into the bright future of the ship and the crew under Commander Easterday's watch, I want to use this occasion to go back through the ship's storied history. In your programs, there are pages upon pages of stories that were pulled from operational reports and command histories. Here today to help bring some of those stories to life are the commanding officer, but going in reverse chronological order, we'll hear from the 13th and the 10th and the first commanding officers, and then we'll cap it off with the ship sponsor, Mrs. Cindy McCain. For those Big Bad John alums watching from home, enjoy the walk down memory lane. And for my crew, take note of your heritage and be ready to help write the next chapter.
Captain Sargent served as the 13th commanding officer between October 2013 and May 2015, and is the prospective Deputy Commodore of Destroyer Squadron 15. Please welcome Captain Chase Sargent.
Good morning. Mrs. McCain family, what a pleasure to have you here. It's an honor to have you back on board this mighty warship. Thank you for your presence. Fellow McCain captains, commanders, families, friends here today, and the crew of the Big Bad John. It's an awesome pleasure for myself and my wife Sherry to be back on board. It's been just over 4 years since last I was running these deck plates, and it's always a special place for me. It's also great to be back in Yokosuka as we're back here for another 2.5 to 3 years heading to Desert 15. So we're excited to be back with the 7th Fleet. Commander Murphy asked me to keep this speech to 3 minutes, which we all know in Navy time, 3 minutes means 30 minutes. How quick is that? When's that engine going to be repaired?
30 minutes.
3 minutes, right? 3 minutes. When's the circus going to be back online? 3 minutes. All right, I'll keep this on track, I promise. Commander, what a special day to be honoring this ship, its history, and the men and women who served on her the last 25 years. To have the first commanding officer and the ship sponsor here today clearly indicates to me how this ship continues to be a connecting force for those attached to her history and to her future. So Mike asked me to talk about my experience and history of the ship to link it towards that future, especially as I go into as a role as over at Desert 15. And unfortunately, my memory is horrible, and we don't do a good job really of writing things down in the Navy. So what I do know is, and what I can speak to, is the Big Bad John family. And every ship, I think, has a unique character, a unique culture, a unique blend of history, tradition, lore that's specific to that ship. And on John S. McCain, for me, it's the sense of the Big Bad John family that always stood out as the strongest. I don't know if it's the strong foundation of the traditions and the culture of excellence set by the first commanding officer and their crew. I don't know if it's the strength of the ship's namesakes and the family that we represent as the McCain family that brings the sailors, the tenacity, that confidence that brings the sailors that they connect to, or it's the unique history of this ship, which is now alongside the Curtis Wilbur serving in the FDNF Japan for over 20 years, that brings that unique family atmosphere to this ship. But what I do know is that it's all rolled up in there somewhere, and perhaps many ships have a similar connection. But I can speak to this one, and what I know is that McCain sailors share the strongest bond, the strongest connection to ship and the crew that I've ever experienced and I've ever been associated with in my career. I could be biased, perhaps, but when you experience it firsthand, you see the lasting relationships and dedication and selflessness of a crew, you know there's a special bond, and one that endures during my tour, and I think I see with the crew today. So what I think about the future and what I think that holds for John S. McCain, I see much of the past is what I see. I see deployments in support of interests of our nation and our allies. I see an ever-increasing complicated maritime environment in which we're going to operate. I see maintenance and readiness and operational challenges that are going to test the resiliency and the toughness of this crew and this ship. But for the current Big Bad John family, it's about connections. And I'm talking to those sailors in the back here. It's about connections, and it's about culture, family, that will serve as the foundation of your future success. It is what carried this ship through deployments to the Arabian Gulf and deployments in support of 9/11 operations, as well as operations across the 7th Fleet. It's what crews before you have relied on to rise to the challenges of countless inspections, certifications, and maintenance periods over the last 25 years. And it's the foundation of family that helped steady the ship during the events of August 2017 and continues to permeate through this crew as you get this ship ready to head back to sea. I left command, as I said, about 4 years ago, and in my change of command speech I wrote this: to the officers and chiefs and crew, I thank you. I thank every captain gets up at the end of their tour and thanks the crew for their hard work. They talk about how it's the crew that they will miss the most, how the crew is the reason the ship had the success and will continue to succeed, the reason why the tour was so rewarding, and each captain says that because it's absolutely true. And I think that still stands today. As I look for the future for Big Bad John and the John S. McCain, I look to you guys and girls in the back here to really continue to be the strength of this Big Bad John family. It's up to you to to pass along to the next generation what it means to be a Big Bad John sailor, to take care of your own and to take care of this ship. There will be a culture that's going to need to be the foundation for the next 25 years as this ship sets and meets new challenges. Mike and Sarah, I want to give you a thank you for a well done and a phenomenal tour. Look forward to working with you for the next couple years over at ATG. And for Ryan and Andrea, wow, where are you at? There you are. What a great to have you here, and congratulations on command and a growing family. It's exciting to have you here. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to wish Big Bad John a happy 25th anniversary. Thank you very much.
Captain Kim served as the 10th commanding officer between March 2009 and November 2010, and is the commander of Fleet Activities Yokosuka. Please welcome Captain Jeff Kim.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Ohio gozaimasu and good morning. And it was 9 years ago that I was able to give my final remarks in a change of command ceremony held on this deck while at this very same pier. And I thank Captain Murphy and the Big Bad John team for the amazing privilege to again take part in the heritage and legacy of this magnificent warship and its magnificent crews. And today, I am also privileged to be able to speak to you as the commanding officer of the naval base where USS John S. McCain has been stationed continuously in Japan for over 2 decades. And for 23 of the ship's 25 years, DDG-56 and her crew have proudly called Yokosuka home. This is a fitting tribute to what our 3 namesakes devoted their lifetimes of public service for peace and security in the Western Pacific. The dozen ships along this Yokosuka waterfront carry the names of many American heroes, but none of those ships has the special connection that this ship has with this location. This is because it was 74 years ago, on September 2nd, 1945, in Yokosuka Harbor, just out there, that Vice Admiral John S. McCain Sr. and Commander John S. McCain Jr. met on the deck of the submarine tender USS Proteus, just prior to the ceremony aboard the battleship USS Missouri that would end World War II in the Pacific. And at the twilight of World War II, this special father and son moment was captured in a photo that is now forever a part of our Navy history, and that photo is part of the program. This was also the last photo taken of father and son together. But neither would have known that on that momentous day, back here in Yokosuka Harbor. There is intense meaning in USS John S. McCain being stationed right here, in Asia's most prominent naval port, where today the 2 naval forces of now 2 great allies, the United States and Japan, are side by side. Their fleets co-located unlike no 2 countries anywhere in the world. A symbol of enduring bilateral friendship and a symbol of peace in this region. A lasting peace, which DDG-56 has contributed to for a quarter century. In April of 2009, while in Yokosuka, I had the incredible honor of welcoming aboard Senator McCain for his first visit back to the ship since commissioning day in 1994. The following year, in August of 2010, we took the ship for its first ever port visit to Vietnam to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the normalization of relations between the United States and Vietnam, a diplomatic feat that Senator McCain was instrumental in achieving. The Senator could not visit with us at the time, but we carried a personal video message from him that was played on a large screen on this flight deck for the Vietnamese dignitaries who came aboard. It was a message of friendship. It was a message of reconciliation. It was a message of hope for future generations. So ultimately, it is about the future, a bright future, a peaceful future that our three namesakes stood for. And as such, perhaps there is no better vision of the USS John S. McCain legacy than the crew of this ship stationed in this harbor, in this nation of Japan, at peace. I'd like to congratulate Captain Murphy, incoming Captain Easterday, their families, and also congratulations for 25 years of Big Bad John. Thank you. Arigatou gozaimashita.
Captain Jake Ross, the commissioning commanding officer, served as the first CO of USS John S. McCain between July 1994 and April 1996, and currently serves as the CEO of Strategic Management Consultants. Please welcome retired Captain Jake Ross.
Well, I will try to keep it short because it's getting a little warm out here. Chaplain, you did a great job with the sun. But thank you, Captain. Cindy, the McCain family, distinguished guests, and most importantly, the crew of the John S. McCain, present and past. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I say that as an old guy, to celebrate this ship, which obviously I feel very invested in. The McCain family, who was incredibly gracious to me and my family back during the commissioning and been wonderful, and to the crew, and also to recognize the outgoing captain and the incoming captain. I'd like to first thank Micah for your hospitality over these last couple of days. It's been very, very nice. Great to see the ship and meet some of today's crew. You have your hands full, as will you, Captain, and the time you spent with us was very special. Now, Micah asked if I had a few observations from the past, so I'm going to pass along a few things. First, I would like to pass on to the crew. You know this already, but want to ensure that you are aware of this. You have the best sponsor of any ship I have ever known, and I say that in my nearly 3 decades of service. Cindy was engaged, she was excited, and in all ways the perfect choice to bring a special spirit to the crews of the John S. McCain. From my initial assignment to the ship to the christening so long ago, the commissioning, follow visits to why she was there, and I'd like to thank you personally, Cindy. I would encourage all the crew to get to know the namesakes of the McCain family. You've heard a little bit about them today. Do some reading. There are some great stories there. I was blessed as an individual to meet the Senator's mother, his mother's twin sister. There's lots of stories with the McCain family, and those two were something when you got them together, is all I can say. If you get a chance, do watch, not me speaking, but watch President Bush Bush 1 recognizing the McCain family. And as you mentioned on that day, this is a family of heroes. A family of heroes. The McCain family, their tradition was service to the country, and that was the most important thing I'd worked to impart to the initial crew. And one story I haven't often told, and Cindy, I don't know that I ever told you, was as the commissioning CO, you are privileged to design the ship's crest. You work with the Navy's, or it's actually the Army's Office of Heraldry, and as your program states, there's a broken chain in there, it's in the Eagle's beak. It was in recognition of the World War II service of the senior McCains. What was not explicitly stated in the program was that the artist with whom I worked, she felt that symbol also recognized breaking the chains of captivity, and it was a subtle reminder of Senator McCain, who at that time was not a namesake of the ship. Now he is, but the artist was prescient, is what I've got to say. So that many years ago, she recognized that. So it's a little bit of different. You never heard it anywhere else, but that was an opportunity I had. She was a big fan of the senator and wanted to quietly recognize him. I was asked about anecdotes from my time on board. There are many stories of meeting the McCain family, going up to see the admiral's office as it was and things of that sort. And as I've noted before, Cindy was very kind to me and my wife and the crew. And you gave me a great deal of information about the family that was passed along. The legacies were inspiring and somewhat, not even somewhat, very, very challenging. What stands out looking back over these many years and recent contact, just if you don't know, there is a website for the plank owners, and we stay in touch. We're getting old, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The initial crew, you talk about the Spirit Captain, they were a cocky bunch. They were really something else, and we did not think there was anything that we couldn't do. And everything we did was a first. And I've talked about the PCO, talked to the PCO about he's going to do that as he gets the ship back underway. First night we get underway, fog, can't see the folks, so we're moving along off of Georges Bank, off of Maine. We got underway, couldn't see anything at all. And so that was my first night underway. I did not sleep. Next we go down to Yorktown to arm the ship, go through a bridge, never done that before. Then we head out of Norfolk, hurricanes down the Caribbean. We were racing, we got one ahead of us, one behind us. We run to Rodman, go through the Panama Canal. Don't know my ODs. So again, a little tense. I had a little hair before all that started. Then we get out, we go through the Panama Canal, we're en route to our home port of Hawaii. I decided to do something that nowadays probably COs would be relieved. I mod locked off of Rodman, Panama. If you don't know what that is, you can set yourself in a position. You've got a little bit of window out there because we were going to cross the line. So we went down south of the equator, had a cross the line ceremony because we had a lot of green crew members and we had to knock the green off those pollywogs. So we did that. Then over the next year and a half, I'd been, by the way, the Arleigh Burke class was still sort of cutting its teeth. There was some uncertainty whether we'd continue building the ships, and I was challenged by the Secretary of the Navy that I had to deploy with it in a year. That's pretty tough if you think about it. Build a ship, change your home port from Maine to Pearl Harbor, and then deploy. Do all your workups. I think I told the captain, I think 20 or 21 missiles for my qualification trials. Then we get underway, we head west. We had port visits, and first port visit in Hong Kong, and it's not in my notes here, but I recollected that the first we were steaming as fast as you can get. We celebrated Thanksgiving en route to Hong Kong. I think 3 of us ate. It was so rough the turkeys kept turning over in the oven. So that was the cooks worked hard, but it was a pretty sad meal. And I was queasy, but by golly, I was going to recognize the cooks who had done such a great job. Then we went on Singapore on the way to the Gulf, spent our first Christmas in Dubai. Then on the way home via Australia, I had my change of command on April 18th, 96, long time ago. Handed over in Newcastle. Without thinking, this is again in recognition of the crew, Newcastle's where Victoria Bitter is brewed, so they hosted the ship. So they had a good several days of nice beer, and Mike Vitale took over, who later became a vice admiral. And one thing I noted here, I would be remiss to tell you, you talk about McCain coming here. Mike had the dubious honor, the pre-commissioning crew had 3 home port changes in 3 years. Bath, Maine to Pearl, here. And if you don't think that's a challenge for families, and it was, we did have more than a few divorces, it was very, very hard, but that crew persevered and did very, very well. I've told the captains some of these stories, and as I mentioned, Captain Easterday will experience many of these same experiences, leave the shipyard, and everything's going to be new. And I wish you well with that. I'm sure you'll rise to the occasion, but that's the great thing. I note here, as I mentioned a minute ago, I've stayed in touch with many of the original crew. The plank owners have gotten old, as have I. They live all over the world. Some are middle-aged hippies, bikers, defense consultants. There are a couple of politicians in there. I know of one IC2 that was here who is now the senior LDO captain in the United States Navy, Eric Williams, if you ever get a chance to meet him, but he's still on active duty. They seem to be doing well. And the bond that we have to this day about the John McCain is, I think, part of the legacy that hopefully you've inherited, and both you have had that taste that I had so many years ago. I would say you now carry on the legacy, Captain. Trust your shipmates, and for all of you McCain sailors, earn his trust, carry on the great tradition, and really, really enjoy your time in the Navy. It's very special. And in closing, for the crew, you're just as young as I remember my shipmates on commissioning day. Enjoy yourselves, enjoy your youth. Thank you for your part in the John McCain family. I'm proud of you and your service. To the McCain family, thank you for the privilege to be a small part of your legacy. God bless you all.
It is my honor to introduce our next speaker, Mrs. Cindy Hensley McCain, is the chairman of the board of the McCain Institute for International Leadership at Arizona State University. She is a lifelong champion of women and children, a Blue Star mother, and the wife of the late Senator John S. McCain. Ladies and gentlemen, the ship's sponsor, Mrs. Cindy Hensley McCain.
Thank you. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here today, and I'm also obviously a little bittersweet, as you can imagine. Captain Ross, thank you. I remember those days like they were yesterday, and I was toting kids that age to get to the christening and commissioning, and they're here today. It was a wonderful day, and it's been a wonderful service as well. Clearly, you know that this ship is very important to our family and means a great deal. It's an anchor in our family. But I am especially pleased today to unveil my husband's portrait, and to accept on his behalf and the behalf of the McCains the commissioning pennant, which meant so much and such a great deal to John. And I'm honored to be invited to witness the change of command. I offer congratulations and best wishes from the McCain family to Commanders Murphy and Easterday, and our gratitude to all the officers and crew of the USS John Sidney McCain for your honoring America with your service. This is an especially auspicious occasion given that it occurs on the 25th anniversary of the McCain's commissioning. I remember the day very well, and I'm sure you do too. It was a warm, sunny afternoon on the coast of Maine, and the late President George H.W. Bush, who had traveled, that brought you by the Democratic Party, who traveled to Bath from his summer home in Kennebunkport, was the principal speaker. He had only been out of office for a year and a half, and he was still a very familiar presence to Americans. For 4 years, he had been the most powerful man on earth, but he was that day, as he was every day, a kind, caring, and modest man, the epitome of decency in public and private, and his thoughtful address at the commissioning reflected the quality of his character. My husband introduced him and gave brief remarks himself. Referring to President Bush, he told the audience to remember the man and the moment, for they were rare. They were in the company of a truly great American who had from his days as the youngest naval aviator in the Pacific World War II through his eventful, accomplished, and wise presidency, always put American people's interests before his own. And he did it with grace, courage, and humility. Even though the last of the Navy's Nimitz-class destroyers and carriers proudly bear the name George H.W. Bush, because of his presence at her commissioning, I've always associated this ship with President Bush. The President had an association with the McCain family long before then. As the commander of a fast carrier task force in the last year of World War II, which included the USS San Jacinto, Admiral John Sidney McCain Sr. had signed the citation awarding Lieutenant J.G. George Herbert Walker Bush the Distinguished Flying Cross for his heroism in the Pacific. My husband spoke often of his admiration for President Bush, which he expressed in full at the commissioning, just as he spoke often of his reverence to the John McCains for which this magnificent ship was originally named, his father and grandfather. They were, John said, my first heroes, and their respect for me has been the most lasting ambition of my life. He always believed he would see them again, and he wanted to measure up to their standards. Of all the wonderful tributes to John that poured in before and after his passing, all of which his family appreciated beyond description, the one that touched us the most, and perhaps meant the most to him, was the Navy's decision the month before he died to add his name to this ship's namesake. John would disagree. I'm biased, of course, but I think John Sidney McCain III was as deserving of this honor as were his distinguished forebears, and I think they would agree too. They shared the same tradition. They were Navy men. Although my husband served in elective office for more years than he served in uniform, the Navy, he said many, many times, is the world I know best and I love the most. He grew up in the Navy, and he's buried in a Navy cemetery. All three McCains valued honor and courage and honesty and taught their children to value them. All three men dedicated their lives to this country's service and willingly suffered hardships and danger in her service. All three were grateful for the lives of adventure and great purpose that serving America allowed them to lead. One of the great honors of John's life was to have been asked to deliver the Naval Academy commencement address in 1993 and honor his father he had received just 20 years earlier. He spoke to the graduates of great heroism he had been privileged to witness as a naval officer, the bravery, daring, and selflessness he had seen. All these things and more I have seen, he told them, and so will you. I will go to my grave in gratitude to my Creator for allowing me to stand witness to such courage and honor. And so he did. He was grateful to the end for the life he had been allowed to lead in service to America, in war and in peace. He thought he was the luckiest man on earth. Not all of that life of service was always seemed that lucky. Suffering and loss are common experiences for most servicemen and women, and John certainly experienced his share, as have many of you. John's last public speech was at the Pentagon ceremony to honor the 10 sailors from the McCain who perished almost 2 years ago now in that terrible accident. And one of my most poignant memories of him was overhearing him as he sat at our kitchen table, days after receiving a terminal cancer diagnosis, calling each of their families and offering his condolence. But for all its sacrifices and tribulations, he did love the life that serving America made possible for him, the places it took him, the extraordinary experiences it gave him. One of the experiences he had been excited about was coming aboard the McCain, as was mentioned, as she lay anchor in Cameron Bay, in the country where he had gone to war and where he had helped make a peace. He was thrilled that day and extremely proud. This fearsome weapon of war and instrument of peace, bears a proud name. Thank you all from all of the McCains for serving her bravely, honorably, and proudly. And please know that this portrait that we will shortly unveil of a young naval aviator, the son and grandson of admirals who became a lifelong servant of the country he loved, hangs in a place where it belongs, the place he wanted it to hang. Thank you. Could my family join me so we could unveil the portrait? Thank you for having me today. This way, okay.
The commissioning pennant is flown continuously by each Navy ship from the moment of her commissioning until the time when she is retired from active service. This commissioning pennant is the second to be flown during Commander Murphy's captaincy. The first was hauled down to be presented to Senator John S. McCain on the occasion of the ship's rededication ceremony last summer. This pennant has been flying continuously since July 12, 2018, the date of the rededication ceremony, and is presented to Cindy McCain in recognition and appreciation of 25 years of faithful service. Ladies and gentlemen, we now transition from the last 25 years of service to the next with a change of command. All hands are gathered to witness the responsibility, accountability, and authority of command pass from one naval officer to another with a simple exchange of the words, "I relieve you, sir." Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Micah D. Murphy, Commanding Officer, USS John S. McCain.
Can we get another round of applause for our fantastic speakers today? I'm so glad that we had these different people from these different times, these different angles from the John S. McCain history here today to share some of these stories that make the Big Bad John the Big Bad John. And as one of the things that we've talked about is we've harkened back to the commissioning ceremony and some of the things that were stated then. I'm going to also borrow from that ceremony and also from President George H.W. Bush, because he spoke about three constants that he called simple, fundamental, and timeless. And they are family, country, and Navy. The McCain family certainly embodied these constants and set the bar very high for the rest of us. These constants are indeed timeless and are every bit as important today as they were a quarter century ago. Also mentioned by President Bush was an interaction that he had overheard from the senator with the sailor on another Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer in Norfolk just a few weeks before the commissioning. And he heard him say, "You know, I look back on my life and my best friends and my best memories, besides my family, are all from the Navy. That is what makes the Navy so special. You will never work with better people." I think President Bush and I can agree on that. Yesterday I had the privilege of holding a bit more of an intimate affair with the crew where I got the chance to say some private goodbyes. So this morning, however, I have so many more people to say thank you, but I also can't possibly thank everybody who's had an impact on me and this crew over the last couple of years. In the back of the program, there is a kind of a non-exhaustive list, but if you oblige me just a few more minutes, I'd like to make a special mention for a few. Rear Admiral Thomas, Commodore Duffy, and Deputy DeMoss, thank you for your trust, confidence, and encouragement. They couldn't be here today because they're out to sea doing the Lord's work, keeping us out of harm's way. To the Naval Service Group Western Pacific, Captains Drummerhauser, Marks, Colby Howard, thank you so much. To my fellow waterfront COs, most of them couldn't be here today because they're operating in an unforgiving sea in a dynamic part of the world. Thank you to you and your spouses for welcoming us and my family here to Yokosuka for the last 2 years. There is indeed no tighter squadron in the Navy. To the ship repair facility, Yokosuka, Captains Farman and Sexton and your team, especially Sean Dennis, Todd Varanis, Kawada-san, and the hundreds of team members from all over the globe over the last couple of years who've worked on this complex and comprehensive repairs. You are just as ready and invested as us to get JSM back to sea. To my 5 port engineers, 4 of whom came after the tragic loss of Matt Covello last August, Dave, Bill, take good care of her. To my 4 CMCs, including my current one, Command Master Chief Frank, don't let my smile fool you, Diego. You have been exactly what I and the crew needed. Thank you so much. To my ombudsman, LaKayla Granados, Kat Hoare, and Lizette Hernandez, you have the most underpaid and volunteer job in the Navy. Thank you all for taking care of the calls and taking care of the families. To my family readiness group, to Presidents Nabil Hernandez and Kayla Fields, and the board members, thank you for bringing new energy and enthusiasm. This is obviously the best FRG I've ever seen. Thank you so much. To the 7th Fleet Band and the Public Affairs team, thank you for making this event memorable and helping to capture it. To my mentors around the globe, you know who you are, and the impact you've made on me and this command. Thank you. To Mrs. McCain and the family, thank you again for your steadfast support and for being part of this celebration today. To my family back home in the U.S., I love you all and wish you were here today. To my kids, Derby, Bailey, Sam, Sully. First of all, I love those sailor suits. Mom, thanks for that nice surprise. My favorite, but also my hardest and most important job is to be your dad. I love you all so much and look forward to spending more time with you and seeing you more these next couple years. To my wife, Sarah, you are the anchor of this family. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this job if you weren't such a strong, capable, and understanding wife and mother. I think back 2 years ago this day, we lost our home in a fire. And so we've been kind of in the rebuilding phase, both in our personal and professional lives for the last couple of years. And I honestly couldn't have done it without you, Sarah. Thank you so much. I love you. To the officers and crew of John S. McCain, thank you for the privilege of being your captain. I will never forget our time together. I have the utmost confidence in your abilities and will be one of the many rooting for you on the pier once you finally get underway this fall. Ryan, first, congratulations on the birth of Aya. Thank you for your counsel, all your email edits, your encouragement, and for always doing what you think is the best for the command. That mindset will serve you well as captain. You too were exactly the XO that we needed, and I am grateful for your friendship. I now pass you the pen and the honor and responsibility of leading this outstanding team to write the next chapter. Thank you.
Mrs. Murphy will now present. Assisting with the presentation of the award is the Sailor of the Year, CTM-1 Justin Patterson. Civilian guests, please remain seated. Military guests and John S. McCain, attention to award. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Meritorious Service Medal, Gold Star in lieu of the third award, to Commander Micah D. Murphy, United States Navy, for service set forth in the following. For outstanding meritorious service while serving as commanding officer on board USS John S. McCain from December 2017 to July 2019. Commander Murphy's inspirational leadership, commitment to innovation, and relentless pursuit of excellence laid the foundation for the ship's success after a tragic collision at sea. Taking command only hours before the docking of the ship for a lengthy emergent repair availability, he immediately set about reestablishing normal shipboard routines for a crew of more than 300 sailors, most of whom had been separated from the ship for over 3 months. The teamwork he inspired in his crew, his focus on their professional development, and the vision he established of a triumphant return to combat readiness paid dividends over the following months as McCain achieved outstanding results in the Integrated Force Protection Exercise Citadel Pacific and joint and combined synthetic exercises with the U.S. Air Force and Royal Australian Navy during Coalition Virtual Flag and Viking Raider. Additionally, demonstrating keen foresight and extraordinary drive, Commander Murphy oversaw the remanning and repair efforts, returning John S. McCain to a full mission-capable warship. Commander Murphy's exceptional professionalism, personal initiative, and loyal devotion to duty reflected great credit upon him and were in keeping with the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. For the President, signed, Carl Thomas, Rear Admiral, United States Navy.
I will now read my orders. From Chief of Naval Personnel to Commander Micah D. Murphy, Buper's Order 0859. When directed by Reporting Senior, detached in July 2019, and report to Float Training Group Western Pacific. I'm ready to be relieved.
I will now read my orders. From Chief of Naval Personnel to Commander Ryan T. Easterday, subject Buper's Order number 1701. When directed by Reporting Senior, detach in June 2019 and report in July 2019 to the Commanding Officer for duty as his relief.
Military guests at ease. Established in 1960, the Command at CPEN was created to recognize the responsibilities placed upon officers in the Navy who are in command or who have successfully commanded ships and aircraft squadrons of the fleet. The insignia design features a commissioning pennant, an anchor, and a large line officer star, symbols of the command and of the officers who have attained the highly coveted and responsible title of commanding officer. Additionally, 6 stars of the Command at Sea insignia represent the first 6 frigates of the Continental Navy. This insignia designates officers who have commanded at sea. It is worn over the right breast pocket while serving as commanding officer and below the left pocket upon their relief. The transition of the Command at Sea pin from his right to his left pocket signifies the completion of Commander Murphy's tour as commanding officer, USS John S. McCain. Commander Murphy's daughters, Derby and Bailey, will assist Commander Murphy in the transition of the Command at Sea pin. Commander Easterday will now place the Command at Sea pin above his right breast pocket to signify his assumption of command. Assisting him with the placement of this insignia is his wife, Andrea Easterday. Ladies and gentlemen, Commander Ryan T. Easterday, Commanding Officer, USS John S. McCain.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. That I stand before you today is a testament to countless people who have counseled me, encouraged me, trained me, and believed in me. To those colleagues and friends who are here today, thank you for your support over the last 18 months, and I look forward to repaying at least some of those many debts. I thank also my wife, Andrea, upon whose love, support, and patience I depend. My draws on those accounts have already been more than you bargained for in this tour, and I know they're only going to increase. Thank you, and I love you. Micah, it has been a privilege and an honor working with you for the last 18 months. Your unique skills, creativity, and energy carried this ship and her crew through some very difficult times. And I cannot possibly quantify all that I have learned from you, or thank you enough for your friendship. As you pass the torch to me, I am confident in the knowledge that you have set us all up for lasting success. To the crew, I can only say this. Thank you for the time and effort you have put into this ceremony, but thank you even more for the energy and enthusiasm you bring to this ship every day. Almost 2 years ago, we had a great task laid before us. Thanks to your efforts, we have made more progress in bringing this ship back to life than anyone could have hoped or expected. But as you know, the task is not yet complete. As we move forward together to take Big Bad John back to sea, more ready and more lethal than ever before, I know that the teamwork, toughness, and winning attitude you so clearly display make us more than a match for anything this theater can throw at us. I look forward to charting the course ahead with you. Thank you. XO, All orders and directives remain in effect. Carry out the plan of the day.
John S. McCain, attention. Guests, please rise for the benediction and departure of the official party.
Well, Big Bad John, I prayed for no rain. In hindsight, I probably should have been a little bit more specific about the humidity. What can I say? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, there is no doubt in my mind that you specifically handpicked these two men as a team with their unique skill sets and talents for their respective seasons of leadership here on the John S. McCain. Lord, they've had life experiences that only you could have known would prepare them for what you've called them to here. So, Father, as they look back and see how faithful you have been, I pray that they will move forward into their new seasons with a bold confidence that your hand still guides them. Amen.
Commander, United States Navy, departing. John S. McCain, departing. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the 25th anniversary of the commissioning and the change of command ceremony. Thank you and have a wonderful Independence Day.